the closure of boundaries, lockdown measures, and travel restrictions have forced the hospitality sector, this industry, to live through its worst results in recent history. A fine panel of students and alums that we have today will comment on precisely that. Allow me to introduce Melanie from Gemba 2021, Legal Director, APAC of Melia Hotels, Serena Wang from Trip.com. She is the Global Operation Director. We have Forrest Zhang with us, who is the China Managing Director of HotelBeds, one of the world's leading platforms in lodgings. We have Guanlu Feng, who is the Director of EHL Advisory. As you well know, EHL is the #1 hospitality business school in the world. We have Jonathan Zhang, who is the GM Asia for Air New Zealand. And finally, we have Jeremy Nyo, who is the manager of the Rosewood in Hong Kong. Most of you will have spent some time, whether in Sanya or elsewhere, at one of the beautiful resorts of Rosewoods. So you will have noticed we brought together airlines, hotels, and travel platforms with the idea that this might give or highlight different perspectives. Also, allow me to pinpoint that at CIC, we value the contribution of women as subject matter experts as much as we do value the contribution of men. This is reflected today again in our panel's composition. I am extremely grateful also to Professor Vivian Guo, who is Associate Professor of Strategy and Entrepreneurship at CEIBS. Thank you very much, Professor, for moderating this session. And before we kick off, one last remark for the audience. Thank you for being with us. Please share your comments and or questions by using the chat function. So you can do so throughout the entire session. If you have a live question, we can take that too. Please, again, just mention this in the chat function. And now, without further ado, let me give the microphone and the stage to Professor Guo.
Hello, everyone. And from my screen, I can see here we already have 3 pages of participants. So welcome, everyone. And we have a very exciting panel here tonight to discuss about the current status and as well as the future status of the travel and tourism industry. And so I'm not going to give a lecture here, so no worries. But I really want to ask our panelists, so how is your industry, or how do you think the travel and tourism industry has been impacted by the pandemic? We've seen some numbers that, you know, the industry definitely has been hit really hard, but it has been recovering gradually since the beginning of this year. So we would like to see what's your kind of a view from, you know, at the front of the operation and what is like. And in terms of the ordering, let's go by the ordering that Citric introduced at the beginning. So we will start from, I guess, Melanie, and then Serena, and Guanlu, Forrest, Jonathan, and Jeremy. So, and Melanie, please go first.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me as a panelist. Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Melanie Blanco. I'm the head of legal department of Melia in Asia Pacific. Melia Hotels International is a Spanish public listed hotel company that is operating in more than 40 countries and nearly 400 hotels. In Asia, we have presence in Thailand, Malaysia, Myanmar, Indonesia, Vietnam, and China. And we are here operating under the business model of management. So what we provide is we provide the know-how to manage the hotels under our operating and international brand standards. We have office in Shanghai and also in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, and in Jakarta, Indonesia. Our strategy in Asia is not just to extend the portfolio of hotels, but also we want to foster the outbound travel. That means we want to incentivize the Asian traveler to travel the world and to visit our worldwide hotels.
And can you share with us a little bit how your industry has been impacted by the pandemic?
Yes, sure. I mean, in the end, we have been in a perfect storm since 2020. We already noticed in 2019 that there was like this VUCA wall, this complex wall. And then this pandemic in the end has turned to be a roller coaster where there's like ups and downs depending on the waves of the pandemic. And honestly, in the hotel sector, it has been it's a very big hit, because in the end, our revenue suddenly was very low. We still had the high fixed costs. And at the same time, you need to implement as soon as possible the safety protocols, not in terms of cleanliness, because we already set the highest standards, but in terms of disinfection and social distancing. So we had to react very quick to the changes, because from one day to another, everything changes, right? So yes, it was a very big challenge. So what we try in our hotel company is try to be more efficient, try to reduce operating costs as soon as possible, and of course, increase our liquidity to try to conserve our capital.
Okay, I guess Serena next.
Hello, everyone. I'm Serena from Gemba 2021. I'm really happy to have these opportunities to talk the industry insights and also listen to your feedback and your insights as the customers about travel and about the COVID situation. I have been working in Trip.com, which is known as Ctrip in China market, but we call Trip.com Group. I've been working here for 11 years, and my focus is on the overseas markets. So we start almost 10 years ago, we start to expand our business to Hong Kong market at the first stop. And then we expand to more Asian markets. And actually during the last 2 and 3 years, we expand our business more in Europe and the US. So talking about the impact of the COVID, if you back to the 2020 April, our business almost dropped to zero, or the whole market freeze, no flights, no hotels open, and people cannot travel and even cannot go outside home. But I do believe that it's also some opportunities for us. For example, in Europe, we actually have very positive progress during the pandemic period, because before our advantage of Trip.com is the China outbound travel. We have large users in China, and this is something we can leverage and bargain better deal for the overseas, for the global users. But the COVID actually forced us to look into the domestic travel, because during the 2 years, only domestic travel is bounced back, and all the international travel still is freezed. So the opportunity is like when we focus on more on domestic travel, we found there's opportunities in the supply chain and also in the user experience optimization. So we spend a lot of time to build up our foundation of the overseas user experience, as well as optimize our products and the price and deals. So this year we actually see very good results in Europe. We already surpassed the records before pandemic, and also in Asia, along with the policy, the restriction released in each countries, we also see very rapid growth in Singapore, in Thailand, in Korea. Recently, we also see for Japan. So everything is bounced back very quickly. So I think we're already at the end of the tunnel, and there's already a lot of opportunities coming. Yeah.
Great, great. So our next panelist is Guan Lu.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Guanlu Feng. Actually, I'm working for the EHL Advisory, which EHL is one of the leading hospitality schools in the world. According to the QS ranking, in the hospitality major, they rank #1 in the world. I think for over past 3 years, I would say. I'm actually working for the school. I'm also alumni of EHL. I think I'm also taking my EMBA with the SIPS. So apparently, from the poster you can see, I'm the only one in the Gamba program, but I still give great support for Gamba program. I think it's a great program. Actually, even though I'm working for Lausanne, but I'm not really in the academic teaching section. I'm more in the business section, which means I'm in the consulting division, which we have launched history since 1976. With the division would exist within the EHL, and for evolving, they become the more like a independent company, 100% owned by EHL. We provide consulting service around the world. Basically, mainly we're doing our business sides have different pillars, but mainly in the 2 fields. One is hospitality education. We work with different schools around the world. In China, we have 3 schools in cooperation. That's more for the bachelor level. And also, I think we also work with the SIPS. We have a joint program called the HEMBA. I think you also know about that. That's a joint program by the EHL and SIPS, also very successful. Besides
Singapore campus now.
Besides education, we also do the conventional business consulting, which means including hotel developments. We also do the PM for the first investors, which now we're currently working for the Six Sense Hotel in Shanghai as a PM property manager, project manager for the entire project. Also, we are doing the strategic planning for some hotel owners who owns over 10, 20 hotels, have them build their own hotel management companies. Also, one of the famous service we can deliver in terms of service design. So basically, we have different companies build their service standards in terms of service culture, everything. In terms of the impact for the consultancy, we are relatively better for our own, but however, we are largely impacted about our business consulting because some of our clients was some project put on hold, is delayed due to funding issues. Luckily, we switch our focus more work with still own the company who still has money even during the pandemic. That's make us better. The bigger challenge for the education section is not about the students, not about student fee, because school whatsoever they have to go to school. The only challenge is that some new students, which means the high school students, is very reluctant to choose the hotel major. They feel this industry is very vulnerable because if you work in a hotel, if you face some very like pandemic or war, it's kind of special events, you got out of job immediately. So that's the thing that's create anxiety within the parents and the young kids. So that's actually we are facing great challenge in terms of recruiting students, both for Lausanne as well as our certified school, which means the school work with Lausanne. So we see there is this thing happening. That's an impact due to this pandemic. I think that's all. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Guan Lu. So our next panelist is Forrest Zhang from Hotel Beds.
Hello, thanks, Vivian. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you online at this very unique time to talk about travel. So I'm from Gamba 18. Actually, I'm managing the business of Greater China for Hotel Beds, which is a leading event bank company, really focused on the hotel B2B distribution. So that's why I think a little people heard about us because we don't have much exposure to B2C. So to talk about the travel impact, I think this recall me, I think it's 3 years ago, it's the Spring Festival of 2020. I think because the Wuhan, the first outbreak started in January of 2020. And actually the whole Spring Festival, I'm very busy on deal with all the cancellations from China, from Chinese travelers, right? So actually I can share with you some data. Actually in 2020, our business, I think maybe not only our business, the whole travel industry reduced to only 10% of 2019, right? And then we start about maybe a few waves of redundancy. So the only way for us at the moment is to survive. So if you want to survive, the only thing you can do at the moment is save your cost. So we have 3 waves of redundancy. We reduce about 20 to 30% of people, and then because of we have a good cash flow, and also get more, we get additional capital investment from our sponsors. So that's why we start survive. And then also for talk about China, I think in 2020 we saw about 10,000 travel agents disappeared. They either collapsed or either they are switched to other business, right? Some travel agents started to sell vegetables online, right? So this is some data I can share in the first year, right? And then now because of the travel restrictions in the overseas market has been lifted. So actually from the beginning of this year, we have seen a very strong recovery in US, started from US first and then moved to Europe and now in Asia, except China. So actually so far, I think the business already have a positive 20% growth in US and European markets versus pre-COVID-19. Yeah, so I think this is a very strong revenge-driven recovery. Actually, we expect the same thing will happen in China very soon, right? So for domestic, because of lockdown of Shanghai, so I think in the last 2 months, it's almost 30%, business. But now in last week, we have seen our business double. So it's also for domestic. Even now, for Shanghainese, we cannot go out. We can go out, but there's lots of restrictions, requirement for quarantines for different destinations. But we still see a very strong demand coming from the travelers. So now our business is almost double in last week. So we hope this trend will continue. And also, we hope in the future, in the coming next 6 or 10 months, we can see some lift of our board restrictions. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Forrest, for sharing those interesting statistics with us. And our next panelist is Jonathan from Air New Zealand.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Jonathan. I'm from Gemba 18. I've been working for Air New Zealand for the last 7 years. And prior to that, I have been working for Lufthansa German Airlines, Dragonair, as well as Qatar Airways. So basically, I'm very much an airline person. Okay. So speaking of that, the impact to the airline business. Okay. So back to the beginning of the COVID. So basically that you have been seeing more aircrafts are parked either in the desert in Texas or Australia rather than flying in the air. Okay. So I was joking to one of my friends that time that if there was no government support to the airlines, okay, in year 2020, there wouldn't be any airline exist in the world. Okay, so basically I was joking saying that if next time you go to another country for holiday, better to ride a bicycle or take a boat. Okay, so that was the impact to the airline business that time. Okay, so actually the recovery road for the last 2 years or last 2.5 years has been pretty bumpy. Okay, we have been seeing that the Delta, that outbreak, and later we have been seeing the Omicron. So basically it's really a roller coaster experience for many airlines. Okay, but it's interesting that this year we have been seeing a very different situation and scenarios. Okay, so actually what I would like to describe is airline business is going to 2 different extremes. For example, let's say that for many Western countries, okay, for example, let's say Europe, North America, and Middle East, actually both domestic business and the international business has resumed very close to the pre-COVID level. Okay, take USA, for example, it's a huge market. It's #1 aviation market. The latest number is there are only about 8% for domestic compared to 2019, and only 17% behind the 2019 in terms of the international travel. And this 17%, I would say very much, because of the absence of the Asia. basically China, Japan, and many Southeast Asian countries. Okay, so having said that, the other part of the world, basically the countries where we live here, China, and probably some of our neighbors, that Japan, probably Hong Kong, are pretty much conservative. So at this moment, actually, it's still very much similar to what happened in 2020. So the actual, that the total seats has been provided from the airline perspective is only about 14%. Okay, so this was under the circumstance one of our neighbor like Korea already that open up. Okay, otherwise this will be even more challenging. So to me, that the airline business is quite interesting. It's going to different directions for the time being. Okay, thank you.
Glad to hear that the airline business, at least you have two extreme that is coming back for the majority, the rest of the world, except for mainland China right now. And our last panelist is Jeremy New in Hong Kong.
Good evening, everyone. This is Jeremy here. Greetings from Hong Kong. I am a Gemba 18 as well. Very proud. We are one of the last Gemba classes to have a full proper Gemba experience. So happy to be sharing here today with everyone. I've been in the industry for about 20 years, worked for Marriott, Hyatt, and now currently with Rosewood. And Rosewood is a privately owned company. We operate about around 30 hotels around the world and in about 18 countries, with another 30 plus hotels in the pipeline. We are a very young brand, very young company, only about 10 years old, owned by the New World Group. The pandemic definitely did hit the hotel industry quite hard, but fortunately, we were in a market where people have all the material items. They have the house, they have the car, they have food, and they're looking for experiences. So the staycation business was actually quite strong for us. Being the newest hotel, latest and greatest on the block, we did have a slight advantage coming out of COVID, being the place that everybody wanted to go to and experience. Our rates are by far the highest in town. But we are seeing a very strong comeback. Whenever restrictions are lifted, we see a flood of people coming out, going for this experience. This was also true back in 2020 when I opened up the Park Hyatt in Suzhou. We opened at the end of May, not knowing what was going to happen, middle of the pandemic. The doors opened, and the Chinese market started spending. We were out of all our fine wines. Anything over 20,000 RMB, we were sold out within a week. And by the end of the year, we ran the highest occupancy within the company. So the need for travel, the need for experiences is there. Unfortunately, these past 2 years have been a bit challenging. It has been a roller coaster of up and down, adapting, creating new ideas, innovating, to create new gimmicks of what people might like. Our chefs, our Michelin star chefs, were preparing food packages for people to order and make at home. We were just getting as creative as possible to ensure that we were keeping our customers and market engaged, and the Rosewood brand was relevant in their minds. Now, around the world, we are seeing a very strong comeback, especially in Europe and the US. Now, in Southeast Asia, we still have a property here and there closed. But, the problem now is finding the labor to work in these hotels. A lot of the labor did move into other industries. We see that in the US and Europe especially. And filling the positions, getting these people to come back into a very challenging industry where a lot of people were hurting very, very badly. It is a challenge, and we do still have hotels closed for this reason, but things are coming back, and we feel positive about the bounce back.
Thank you. So as Serena was mentioning, right, we're no matter what happens, right? Some of the students are probably, some of you in the audience are still in Shanghai. We're still a bit uncertain about what would happen with the policy in mainland China, but we are near the end of the tunnel, and we're trying to we're trying to anticipate what will happen next. And many would say that the travel and tourism industry would be very different post-pandemic compared to a pre-pandemic kind of an era. And so I want to talk a little bit about the travel trends. So I want to ask our panelists, Jonathan and Serena, and based on your experience and the data and your experience, how do you see the travel trends is changing? Like, are people now visiting new destinations, like, you know, lesser known destinations? Like, do they change the kind of places they go now? Let's start with Serena, I guess.
Okay. I think it is still highly impacted by the government policy. Until now, I think domestic travel or short-haul travel meaning like within Europe or Europe, to Middle East or within Asia, we see very rapid growth. Domestic travel is actually already have a very strong growth last year because people have to take some leisure time. So like Jeremy mentioned, like staycation in Hong Kong is very popular. Staycation also very popular in Singapore markets. So people need to go outside, meet with friends and families. So domestic travel, I think we already see strong bounce back last year. But I think during the last summer peak season, we also see the short-haul travel, especially within the Europe countries, is also grow very rapidly. And this year, starting from Q2, along with those Asian market travel policy released, for example, Thailand in May, they actually don't require quarantine for inbound traveler. They open to all countries. And also Singapore, Korea, they gradually release those quarantine restrictions. Then we see, firstly, we'll come back this short haul. Some country bubbles, like Korea to Vietnam, like Singapore to Malaysia. So those country bubbles will first need to come back. And then we see other short-haul destinations. And currently we also see some long-haul, for example, from Asia to US. But compared to the pre-COVID period, it's still, I think, still some gap. Yeah.
Thank you, Serena, for sharing. What do you think, Jonathan?
Thank you, Professor. Actually, I'm having slightly different view in terms of the travel going forward. Actually, I'm not that optimistic, to be honest, because firstly and foremost, you know, that the first thing we need to think about is travel essential going forward? Okay, so basically to me, the first foremost is that travel is not bread and butter, okay, but it's the cream on top of it. So when you have to travel, when you decide to have a trip, the first thing you need to ask is how deep is your pocket? Are you able to afford? Okay, so this is the thing. Okay, so I think, you know, now I did see China is doing okay so far, but you never know what will be happening or evolving in the next couple of months until the time China can really lift the border, okay, and open up to the world. Okay, this is first thing I'm concerning. And secondly, and what the geopolitics may play out. Okay, so I hate to talk about that, but this is something that's pretty, you know, that's straightforward to every single of us. Okay, so over the last 2 years, actually there's a lot of involvement. Okay, so at this point in time, actually China is still having travel bans for Chinese citizens to many foreign countries. Okay, so once that the travel can be, you know, refacilitated, is still that going to happen? Okay, will anything be changed? This is another question mark. And thirdly, a more interesting part is that, you know, that before the COVID, Chinese people spent almost 0.7% of the China GDP for the spending overseas. Okay, and China also had more than 155 million Chinese people went overseas in year 2019. So this is a huge potential. Okay, that will be the question mark for the Chinese government, that will they allow Chinese people continue to promote them or encourage people to go abroad, or rather to retain the consumptions, okay, within China, right? And you know that, don't forget that China, in terms of the tourism contribution to the GDP, that was about 10%, okay? And you know that a lot of domestic tourist destinations like Sanya or Xinjiang or many other places was benefit big time during the, the COVID, because of the closing down of the borders, okay? The next thing I want to highlight here is really about how people can conquer their psychological or mental fear in terms of the traveling, okay? To be honest, even my mom or many of my friends, they are afraid of having a trip because of, they are afraid of COVID. They are afraid of contract COVID when they go to somewhere they are not very comfortable with. Okay, this will be the long ride. Okay, this is really about a subject to the narrative the government is going to have going forward. Okay, and last but not least, as that is the word still need China or not? This is a very, very, good question. Okay, so basically, as I said, Chinese people are not traveling abroad, but actually the world is moving on. Okay, a lot of tourist destinations now worldwide has been so crowded, it's so full. A lot of hotels are running high occupancies. A lot of airlines are running very high seat load factors. Okay, so the thing is, at this point in time, I still see most countries still need or still like Chinese visitors. But by the end of the day, okay, so if current situation lasts another year or two, is still the same case scenario or not? So this is a question is for us to answer. Okay, so this is my view. Thank you, Professor.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm sure currently the government policy is having a lot, kind of a huge influence on people's travel behavior and decisions. And I want to hear from the hotel perspective, like say from Jeremy and Melania. And what do you think, and how do you see the type of traveler that come to your hotel nowadays? Because a lot of people would say that the business travel has been impacted a lot. And do you see much fewer business traveler and nowadays, or do they stay longer and changing in their behavior?
Yeah, I mean, the new trends are here to stay, right? So what we have seen is that the society has changed and also our habits. So the corporate travel has been reduced a lot because in the end has been replaced part of the meetings. Instead of meeting in person and take a flight for going to see your client, you are replacing it by technological tools like this one and meet virtually, right? So we have seen this reduction on the corporate travel, and also, as Jeremy was mentioning, we have a lot of limitations in terms of the how many people you can have on your conference room, on your meeting rooms, on your ballrooms. So this has been one of the trends of these last 2 years, this reduction of corporate travel. And then, as it was also already mentioned, the domestic traveler has played a big role in these last 2 years. People want to travel close to their home. They want to explore their own country. They want to be closer to the nature, so in leisure destinations. This has been a very important also new trend. And what they have also changed is their mind, and now there's a universal awareness of the importance of sustainability. So our customers now are trying to look for companies that are responsible with the environment. I believe these are like the most important trends, together, of course, with what they are looking for is experiences, as Jeremy also mentioned, and contactless services. The ability to have, for example, opening your hotel room with a digital key, or doing your check-in and check-out online, or ordering within the hotel through an app. So these are the kind of services that the customer is looking for nowadays.
Thank you. Jeremy, what do you think?
So On the ground, we are remaining as agile as possible to ensure that we're able to capture every bit of the market. But 99% of that market is staycation business, especially here in Hong Kong, where the place is so small. There's no real reason for any domestic travel for business. But we do see a few conferences coming back. Companies do have the budget for that. I think everybody budgeted this year to be the comeback year or a more normal year. So we are seeing, with the lifting of restrictions, a lot of business coming back from an events perspective. Meetings are still capped to be relatively small, so we're not able to hold those massive conferences that we used to do. But staycation business, people are still needing that experience. They need to fulfill that desire to be engaged and experience new things. As soon as we here in Hong Kong for the first quarter, we're locked down until about the end of April. But then once everything opened up, the business just started flooding in. People started coming because they don't know when the next restriction or next lockdown might be. Let me get out and spend and experience things before it comes again, because here's the 5th wave, and there's talk about the 6th wave. You don't know if there's going to be a 7th wave. So there's a big question mark, but people are eager to spend and people are eager to travel. People did make money and did save money last year by not traveling, essentially. So let me go spend, $1,000, $2,000 US a night on a room over at the Rosewood. It's something that's very normal nowadays. So from a hotelier operational perspective, it's definitely a challenging time, but things are coming back.
Thank you, Jeremy, for sharing your perspectives. And actually, we have in the audience and posted one of the question about the role of technology in hospitality nowadays. As we know, a lot of industry are trying to make digital transformations. I'm sure during the pandemic, the hotels have to look into the technology. Have you guys run into any technology related challenges?
As Melanie mentioned, a lot of the industry is moving to contactless check-ins, contactless delivery, minimal interactions with people, basically. Room service deliveries at one point were placed outside the room, and the person were walked away, and everything was packed in disposable containers. Keys, a lot of mobile apps. Marriott, Hyatt, they have a mobile key where you can just scan. Here at Rosewood, our guests can check in fully online, and once they get to the hotel, just grab a key at the front desk and go up to the room. We, of course, do implement a lot of cleaning technology in our rooms as well, to ensure that we're disinfecting and there's no traces of COVID or potential hazards that could infect the next guest.
Good. We have a couple of questions coming in from the audience, if you allow me to jump in. A question coming from Nick, I see here, that is twofold. And I would like to direct the question to Forrest, because it's a typical B2B question. After 2 years of border closures and travel restrictions, have companies in China changed their business process? Have they found ways to operate? That's one question that I would like to direct to Forrest. I continue with a question from Ingwen Lee, and I would like Jonathan to answer that question, because Jonathan talked about the roadblocks to recovery. It's a $1 million question. When do you foresee China international travel to recover? That's a question for Jonathan. And then perhaps the last question for Serena, a question coming in from Rito. Do you see that China will have a country bubble? Those are 3 questions. Perhaps Forrest, if you would like to start.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, first of all, I want to clarify a little bit. Our B2B model is not only for corporate clients. Our B2B model, which means we provide all the hotel inventory to all the channels or intermediary channels they are doing travel hotel business. For example, Serena's company, Ctrip, is also my client. Okay, so for this question, I think if you remember, I think it's last year Bill Gates said the business travel will reduce to 50% post-COVID, right? But actually, if you look at now, so actually then lots of companies, they started to work from home. Start from Microsoft and then Facebook, Google, and now for China. Also Europe, many companies start to work from home, use Zoom, Teams, or Skype to do the meetings at home. But after 2 years, before the COVID, everybody said, I need to work from home, right? But then in the last 2 years, with everybody experienced this, working from home, taking conference call with colleagues through online. But actually, I think it's 2 weeks ago, Musk from Tesla, he announced a message to his whole team. Everybody should come back to office, right? If you don't want to come back to office, you'll be fired, right? So based on our own experience, I think online conference cannot replace offline bonding, offline meeting, offline touch with your colleagues. That's impossible, especially if you need to engage with your clients, with your partners. You need to go out and meet your hotels, your clients. You cannot just use online to replace all of these offline activities, right? So based on the data, I think we have some data. One is from Ctrip's, corporate business unit. The forecast is for China travel, business will come back to the same level of pre-COVID in 2024, early of 2025. And actually in the last 2 years, I think starting from the second half year of 2020, we already see the rebounding, the rebound of a local or domestic travel business demand. Maybe not happening in the first tier cities because there's more restriction for the first tier cities, but in the second tier, third tier cities, the loss of the business travel demand, especially for those local companies, and also including some international companies, for example, Siemens or some other companies, their business in first tier city is already very good, it's enough. So they have to penetrate into second tier city, third tier city, first tier city in China. So there's a lot of demand in this kind of lower tier cities. So we already see the rebound starting from the second half year of 2020, right? So that's why we think the business travel will still come back, right? And also another demand we see is a new trend is for the companies, they encourage people, working from home, they have another needs for business travel, team building needs. So every month or every 2 weeks, they need a team building for their team. Because the people, they don't talk to each other face to face, right? It's not good for their team engagement, loyalty to the company, right? And also, some companies, for example, Microsoft, they reduce the salary for people working from home, maybe because they think they need to have a lower life cost, or they are located in a different city, in a second tier or third tier cities, their life cost is lower, then they will reduce the salary for the employee. So so that's why I think there's something, the online conference call cannot replace the offline activities. So that's why we think the business travel will still come back. Yeah, sooner or later.
Thank you, Forrest. And Serena, if you still recall, the question for you is about whether or not the traveling bubble would come to China, mainland China, anytime soon, based on your experience.
I think I'm not that optimistic about the China outbound travel this year. So maybe in Q4, the policy will gradually be released. I will see, based on data pre-pandemic, the China mainline to Hong Kong is the biggest bubble for travel. then to those short-haul destinations as Thailand, as Korea and Japan. That's the most popular destination for Hong Kong, for China outbound travelers. But everything depends on the policy, because if the quarantine policy, if the vaccination policy doesn't change too much, and it's too much cost for people, both in money, in the time, too much cost for traveler to take those outbound travel for Chinese travelers.
Thank you, Serena. And so the question from Yingwen Li for Jonathan is, when do you foresee China's international travel to recover, or any expected timeline at all?
Thank you. It's truly a $1 million question. Actually, you know what, Isa, who is the Gamba, asked me the other day that what is my expectation. Actually, I give her a timeline. She said she was too pessimistic. However, now after literally 1.5 years, it proved I was too optimistic. Okay, so it's really, really a hard question. So, okay, so if let's take everything into the consideration. So what happened to China now is I don't foresee this year, calendar year 2022, will be a year for the relaxation. Okay, because you all know that the 20th Congress meeting will be taking place in Beijing later this year. And also now, I think the narrative from the government after Shanghai's lockdown has been very clear that no tolerance of the living with COVID. So that is pretty clear. Okay. However, so having said all that, on the other hand, I have been also seeing some new developments lately. Okay. For example, there are more carriers, airlines are starting new routes from China to overseas, destination. Okay, and also the quarantine dates, okay, that was 14 days, may shorten to 7 days. There has been a lot of trial in some cities, okay, to 7 days, okay. And also I heard Hong Kong can shorten to 3 days after 1st of July. This is another signal to the people that whether or not those, that the policy can be changed. And more so, I heard that the visa process for the foreigners to come to China can be a lot more easier. So put everything together. So to me, that is clearly indicating that China is also trying to explore that the time that how and when can open the borders. So if I have to give a timeline, so I probably tend to agree that what Professor Bala said, I think back to last year. So probably this time around 2023. Okay, this is my personal guess. I can be very wrong, okay, but this is my best guess. And also, I just want to take this opportunity to just comment the earlier question regarding the bubbles, okay? And on my personal view, bubble didn't work, okay? Actually, there was some bubble between Australia and New Zealand, Singapore with Germany, and many others, okay, all failed, okay? Unless, China only would like to be politically right, to have some, that the travel within some very friendly country, that can be the case. But normal, a travel bubble, I do not foresee this is going to happen. I hope I answered the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan, for answering the most difficult questions, the $1 million question there. And here I have a question for Guanlu. That, since you are in consulting and you work with a lot of companies in this industry, and in terms of going forward, do you see any changes in people, in business practice and business model in this travel and tourism industry?
That's a very good question. Actually, we already foresee these things actually happening. Because now I just to sum up, like to say this, I think now the travel become more sustainable, which means we have to keep talking sustainability in terms of eco tourism whatsoever. That's actually, if back 3 years ago, 5 years ago, that's a very good concept. People try to do this, but actually at first we're not really the whole industry achieving this. I think due to the pandemic, I think the industry started paying more attention how to develop sustainable tourism and business traveling. Just give example. For example, like even we are rooted from Switzerland. One of the new practice within our school, the whole groups. We have to cut our travel by 1/3. General practice, but you got travel. But however, they just say, let's to cut the travel. Before it was only for saving the carbon, reducing emission. Now also more safety reasons. You reduce travel, reduce exposure to the risk. Also, you save emissions. So actually, I think now more and more company more seek for the solution without physical traveling. I think that's going to have major impact on the Jonathan's airline industry. I'm not talking about for the leisure travel. I think leisure travel gonna pick up once pandemic is over. However, for the business travel, I will foresee the thing gonna change. That's one from the one angle. Another angle is we just mentioned about the advanced technology, because the human being are very smart. The only difference the human being to the animal is for how you say this, we develop tools, but in the ancient time, but in the modern time we call it develop new technologies. So what you will see a lot of new technology is implementing and for trial. For example, people like to travel. That's human nature. They want to see different things. What if you're not travel? They create some VR thing, right? Let you to experience. They start doing this. So that's also have impact on industry. People try to change the way how to travel, not physical there. For them, with new generation, which Z generation, they like to try new things. They more go to the virtual life, the movie we see. Everything become virtual. That's also impact greatly on the industry, and also as well as the people. So actually, I like to talk about people because the quality talent people is also another key factors. People pay more attention. Before everything, everyone want to do the training, make people better to get staff become more qualified. But now during the pandemic, they start actually doing this because of the government's measures. They have more requirement on hygiene, on the safety, on the practice, on the protocol. So now they put some more requirements and need staff become more disciplined. As also the thing change a lot of industry. So I think this pandemic once it go away, I think this is gonna have certain revolutionary changes made for the industry, for tourism and the hotel industry. You're gonna see that's gonna happen in a big time. Because one thing I hate to say this, the hotel industry actually one of the oldest industry. They rarely change. And what I see, they change, they evolving, but they rarely change they don't like disruptive change. But due to the pandemic, I will see the major change in the industry. We're gonna review maybe next 3 to 5 years. Hopefully we're gonna, I'm sure they're gonna go to the right way, but I think that's gonna happen. Yeah, this greatly impacted the travel, and the business practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Guanlu. So I want to kind of bring Guanlu's question back to Melanie and Jeremy from the hotel industry, right? As he was talking about, the hotel industry is one of the more oldest industry that is really hard to change. And you guys was talking about some of the new technology and ideas that you are trying to implement. Do you face a lot of resistance in terms of changing? Because we know that post-pandemic, probably you need to make a lot of shift in your strategy and positioning in order to do well afterwards.
Yes, I start. Yes, we were talking in the sector that we made improvements in terms of technology more in these last 2 years than in the last 10 years. So actually there has been this investment trying to prioritize these digital tools in our day-to-day. So in our case, in our hotel company, and we are a company that has been set up since more than 60 years ago. So we have been already with this feeling that, of course, we have been innovating a lot with our digital and distribution channels. But during the pandemic, what we realized is that we were in a constant circle where there was the bookings, the travel restrictions, and then the cancellations in a very fast pace, right? So what we did is we improved our distribution channels in order to meet these short-term booking requests to be flexible with our cancellation policies, and to provide this quick pace to the customer to be able to cancel at any time because of course, the situation with the travel restrictions. So this was one of the biggest improvements in terms of trying to meet these new needs. But of course, as I mentioned before, they are like another creative initiatives to try to reduce this interaction between the front desk and the customers for them to feel safe in the space. And I'm sure that is going to be the trend to perform for the future, to invest even more in technology, because we are in a digital world. And because of this digital world, we have to immerse our sector on it. But also, of course, we need to make sure that we protect this concern about the customer that they have with regard to the protection of their personal information, which is aside, again, also a big challenge for the hotel sector, because in the end, nowadays we are living in a regulatory framework that is legislating very fast. It's not just in China, but we have seen it with the GDPR in Europe and also in California, United States. So this concern from the customer about their personal data being transferred and in this digital world is something that definitely we need also to cover from the sector.
So from my side, innovation is one of our core values here at Rosewood. So being a relatively young company, only a little more than 10 years old, we are a bit more agile when it comes to flexibility and standards. We find something new, let's give it a try and see how it works. Well, trying new things is very much a part of our company culture. Discovering the uncharted, going where normal hotel companies don't go. We're willing to try it, and we have a very supportive corporate office and New World owning company group that invest a lot into these pilot programs that we're trying in many of our hotels around the world. Remaining agile and adapting to whatever is going on at the time is something that is very much in our DNA as a hotelier. Dealing with people, no two people are the same, and we have to remain agile in how we serve our customers. So as far as trying new things and resistance, we don't get too much of that, because I think everybody understands that we got to do what we got to do to stay relevant and competitive in the market. The ultra luxury market is coming back probably the strongest, and that's where the market we operate in. So from we've been focusing a lot on sustainability, social impact, and things like that is what people really are looking for nowadays. You know, when people are purchasing things they use at home, they will pay a premium for something that is more sustainable and that's more environmentally friendly. And this is something that we do recognize in the industry when people are choosing where they're going to stay. So innovation, trying new things, this is all part of what Rosewood is. It's not following the standard, it's setting the new standard.
Thank you. And also, you know, it's a lot of business are talking about being agile nowadays, right? After pandemic, and it's always easier to say it than to do it. Can you give us an actual example how Rosewood deal with this issue and of being agile and kind of responding really quickly and adapting to the new situation? Absolutely.
So with let's say, for example, in the first quarter of this year, we had restrictions where our restaurants were only able to open until 6 p.m. and we can only have 2 people per table. Now, that puts a very big limitation on the meal periods that we are able to operate. You're essentially able to operate your lunch restaurants from 12 until 6 p.m. Who's eating dinner between 3 and 4? And essentially dinner was non-existent. So what do? Of course, in addition to our delivery, We created meal packs where our let's say our restaurant, our Michelin star Indian restaurant, our chef Manav created a pack where you can go home and make your own chicken tikka masala. And there's a video where you can watch Chef Manav walk you through the process, so they can still feel engaged. We actually took out half a floor and created playrooms as well. The market for families and individual private playrooms was in high demand. So we were able to rent out these playrooms throughout the day for 45 minutes, an hour periods, where people can go take their kids in and have a good time, have a good immersive experience, and be safe at the same time. So these are just some of the things we've done here at Rosewood, but making sure that we understand and hear what the market is saying, and we are delivering to the needs of the market.
Thank you, Jeremy, for sharing that example with us. And there's a question from Nicholas. I think it's a question for Serena, it's probably most appropriate. And do you foresee a higher price sensitivity after the pandemic due to less income or confidence of future income of consumers, while huge inflation is happening now, which means higher cost?
I think our customers are always price sensitive, no matter pre-pandemic or after post-pandemic. In different markets, I think the user behavior is totally different. For example, in Korean market, the people more care about price than other markets. But in general, people now, they will do price comparison before book, but they also look at other conditions like free cancellations, also as the travel policies as well. So I would say that price in the before plays a very a big weight for the travel decision, but now there's more and more factors to consider when you, especially when you plan an overseas trip. It's not only about the flight and hotels, but also insurance, and also the paper, your documents to prepare to apply visa or other documents. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Serena, for the helpful answer there. I have one question for Guanlu before we jump to a live question. Of course, Guanlu, I'm going to ask you a question about Airbnb. As you know, they exited the market. What's your view on domestic online marketplaces offering lodging and homestays? Can you elaborate a bit more on that? I'll give you a minute or two to think about it, because we are going with a live question from Urvash Singh from MBA 2014 should be with us with a question, and there he is.
Thank you so much, Cedric. Thank you to all the panelists. It's truly been a very interesting and an intriguing discussion that I've witnessed right now. I just got back to Shanghai, so I think I'm probably one of the very lucky few who managed to get back to China after 7 months abroad. And I can guarantee you it's been no easy feat. And I would like to actually first give a big shout out to Jeremy, who helped me try and figure out a way through Hong Kong, which I kind of did not go through Hong Kong, so I was lucky there. I have been working in travel retail, not in, but with travel retail for about 8 years with luxury brands like L'Oreal or even LVMH. So my question would kind of skew towards that side, but it's a two-part question. First part is regarding international travel. And I know Jonathan mentioned 3 key points when it comes to international travel: geopolitics, how is the traveler's mental state right now, and China. we all know post-pandemic, it just came to a crashing halt. It's getting better, 4% increase versus last year, which is still quite low, but and we know that majority of the travelers post-pandemic were Chinese. More than 70% were Chinese, and that has taken a nosedive. So my first question is this: will we see a rise of international travelers from other nationalities? And if that's the case, that will definitely impact the travel retail business, because before that, everything was all about how to cater to a Chinese audience. So that's my first question. Do we see a rise of other nationalities travel versus what we saw post-pandemic, pre-pandemic, sorry. And my second question is pertaining to domestic Chinese travel. And I know that there's been quite a lot of discussion about that already, but this one is like post-pandemic, there was still a lot of hope because we saw that domestic travel went up quite a bit. People were traveling for tourism or even for shopping, and especially towards Hainan. But given the current scenario, that again has slowed down. The recovery has taken quite a big setback. So how will the domestic travel and the travel retail landscape look like moving forward, given that we don't see that the restrictions are going to get eased off anytime soon, and there's still going to be a lot of doubt in terms of people when they travel? So how will we look at the landscape moving forward?
So if you guys don't mind, I'll be happy to jump in on this one. I think it's going to be a big question of what the Chinese government does, right? What kind of travel they allow in, influx of foreign travelers coming to which region. Spending last month in Southeast Asia, there was a huge amount of travelers going to Singapore and Thailand, but within the region. You didn't see too many European travelers there yet, although there was a good amount of Russian travelers in Thailand. But it's going to be a big question mark of whether international travel returns to China and at what pace, because there's still a lot of fear of what's going on, and the big question mark of what the Chinese government will do. Internationally, from domestically, I think the Chinese market internally is very strong. They have a very high disposable income, good savings. So that need to fulfill the experience is still going to be there. And you may not get the business travel, you may not get the big conventions anymore, but you're still going to get the need for travel. And the domestic travel, I feel, in China will remain strong as long as the government allows it to.
I tend to agree with what Jeremy has been saying. Okay, probably starting with your second question about the domestic China travel. Actually, now is really facing a huge headwind, in my opinion. However, this, business has been very, very, that resilient, in my opinion, especially if China closed the borders. So once that the COVID-0 can happen for the next half of the year, and during the summer, I will be guarantee you that domestic will come back in one go. Okay, will come back quickly. Okay, so but this is also, to me, is another question mark. This to me, the international travel and the domestic travel for China, actually I mentioned earlier, it's either or. Okay, so now I think many of us has been go to Sanya many times over the last 2 years. Okay, so what if let's say Thailand open up, let's say Indonesia open up, or Hong Kong open up, will those people still come back to Sanya, or they prefer to go to the overseas destination? Okay, so this is really subject to and depend on the China border policy. Okay, so this is first question. Regarding the other nationality, another thing I really want to mention here is, it's one thing is I 100% support this is a government, that decision. We don't really have any insights. We don't really have any reading about that. However, having said all that, it also can boil down to the restrictions. Okay, so how much restrictions is China going to impose for the international, tourists? Okay, if still applying that PCR test twice, and when you came here, social distance, you need to wearing the mask, you cannot go to the restaurant, it's not going to happen. Okay, I give you a very, very real example, which I was been kind of seeing in my personally. There was a bubble between Germany and Singapore back to earlier this year. So basically, Singapore welcomed German to come to Singapore for holidays. However, at that time, Omicron is widely spread. Okay, so the Singapore government issued the policy that people for in restaurant dining, okay, they cannot exceed more than 2. So what happened is there are a family of 4 German, okay, came to Singapore. Okay, eventually they had to separate themselves for dining. Okay, that is really, really challengeable, and that family eventually decide to pack their bags and go back to Germany right away. Okay, so just to answer your questions, it's really subject to how much restrictions, okay, is still going to in place in China. I hope I answer your question. Thank you.
I can give more details about what kind of restriction. For example, this year, Thailand and Singapore, they also run some kind of welcome back program. In Singapore, we call VTL. Thailand, they have a go-to campaign. This all is government to do some subsidies and encourage people travel to Singapore and Thailand. But it really depends on how many restrictions. For example, at the beginning, only certain airline and flights are able to have the quarantine-free policy to Singapore. So it's not like every flight, every airline you can pick up and fly to Singapore. Only very limited routes with Singapore Airlines you can choose. So this also so with this kind of policy, we didn't see too much recovery for Singapore inbound. Same as in Thailand, at the beginning, it required like 7 days quarantine at hotels. Back to last year, actually, you need to first enter the Bali and Phuket Island at the first stop in Thailand. Then have like, sorry, I forgot, it's maybe 14 days or 21 days in Phuket. Then you can go to other cities in Thailand. So with this kind of policy, people still have a big concern to travel. But this year, after Thailand removed all this kind of quarantine and hotels and the 7 days restrictions, we see is quickly bounce back. So it really depends on, it kind of remove all restrictions. Then we can see traveler decide to travel. Yeah.
Probably, well, I can add some comments or questions. So first of all, you talk about nationality. Actually, from my view, I don't see any other nationalities can replace Chinese position at this moment for international travel. So we're talking about India, maybe could happen in the next 10 years, but not now. For Asia, could Indonesia, because it's really based on your population base, right? First of all, you should have a huge population base, right? So now only maybe India, they have a bigger population than China. So there could be the potential one, but I think maybe they need another 10 years. And then another one, I think in Asia could be Indonesia, because Indonesia also have very big local OTA travelogue. We see they are growing very fast in the last few months. And also Indonesia has a big population in Asia. I think they probably can replace some of the Chinese source market for some destinations. And overall, we don't see any other nationality can replace Chinese travelers' position for the international travel. So for your second question, I think for the landscape of domestic, actually we see some changes. First of all, in the last 2 years, I think probably in the next 1 year, the same city travel is more popular, right? So that's why, city trip speak compared, sorry, I have to say, because Meituan probably they are benefit more on this part than city trip, right? Because Meituan is very strong on the local lifestyle platform, right? Another one is we see the industry is becoming more fragmented, more diversified. Because I just mentioned Now this 10K travel agent disappeared, but also we see many emerging new type of companies. They are participating in the game, right? So actually, many of them, they are moving from other industries. For example, some big tech giants, not only for China, but also for internationally, Amazon, Google, Facebook. In China, we see Jingdong, TikTok, Little Red Book. They all want to participate in this game. So that's why we see more other tech giants that they're moving into the industry, because people still think that this is a huge potential industry. So I disagree with Jonathan's comments. I think travel is the primary needs for people. The only question is whether it's affordable or not. How much money you want to pay, right? So if you just go to Chongming for camping, it's also travel needs for me, right? Maybe you don't need to pay a lot of money, but you still meet your needs for travel. So I think that this kind of question for us is in the future, whether we have some technology innovation to provide a more affordable product to our travelers, right? So another possibility I think we're talking about now is a very hot topic. It's about metaverse. So I think metaverse could be a potential one as a substitute for the travel products, for the traditional travel products in the future. We don't know. We don't know how it's going to evolving, but I think there could be a very high potential for us, right? So back to the question. So it's become more diversified, fragmented, and more, tech giants, more new players, they are participating in the game, right? And also, I think it's the whole industry is in the consolidation stage because of these big guys like Ctrip, Meituan, Fliggy. They're trying to consolidate on the distribution side, demand side, also in the supply side. Some of them, Ctrip, Meituan, they also invest in the offline hotels. So this another trend is this intermediary companies, they produce their own travel products, right? So before they're just the bridge in the between intermediary, but now they're going to create their own product. And also for Fliggy, they have a hotel concept without any people in the hotel. Everything is AI robots, right? So I think this could be another new trend for the landscape for travel. Yeah.
So just to follow up.
Sorry, I was just going to add something about the metaverse. So the metaverse is something that's actually very interesting, and something that we are very much looking into as hotels. Why? Because we're in a stage where people can't come for site inspections. They can't view our hotel. These people who want to book big conferences, they just can't get in. So this is something we're looking to move into the metaverse. You put on a set of VR goggles and you're walking through our hotel. You're experiencing our meeting rooms. You're seeing what it would be like to be in our spaces. So the metaverse is something that is moving forward very fast, and something that Rosewood is already moving on as well.
Okay, thank you. So I guess now we're moving into metaverse now. And so what about the rest of the panel? And what do you think about this trend that's coming? And how, because I think we have our audience asking about inflation uncertainty, related to the demand. Do you think that will have a big impact, or it's more like a complement to this industry, like Jeremy mentioned, right? There's a huge demand out there that you're not able to satisfy, and metaverse actually will become a complement rather than a substitute.
Yeah, I think metaverse is a very hot topic. People like discuss a lot. However, the only thing regarding, I still didn't know discrimination on this regarding generations. For 13, it's like more for young generations, really playing with this, it's easy for them to do. That's gonna be the future. But however, the majority people who are traveling, stay in the Rosewood Hotel or in the Ritz-Carlton, their age around 40-ish, 50 to 60. You know what I mean? There's a more generation of 80s, 70s, even 60s. So those generation of people, I think most people, I would say, people have challenges to function to practice with such a thing. It's going to be very difficult, maybe for the young people. However, for the young people, the issue for young consumers, their spending power is not there. Not everyone can spend their parents' money. This still will be time for them can independently spend their own money. So that's there is a gap. They're gonna be very fast. I know there are some character, even the pair of the Nike shoes, they can sell, the digital one can sell like a sell of fortune. I think that's coming. But in the short to mid-term, I think they still have to rely on physical hotel offering, physical product and services, which to attend to the actual majority consumers, for majority travelers. In the future, I hard to say. I think all the panelists keep mentioning about restriction done by the government. I think that's actually very crucial to the industry, and also relate to the question which is already asked of the Airbnb, why left China? I think that's a very good, perfect example. Also, I see some question from the chat groups regarding a lot of company leaving China, foreign company in China. That's all restriction. I think they all have faith in the potential of the country. We have a very huge population. The consumer base is very huge. They're multi within the country. However, the restriction is very unpredictable. So, for example, Airbnb typical. They entered China in 2016. After 5-6 years, left China. But anyway, the revenue they generate in China only account 1% of the total global revenues. That's to them not major. The surface reason they gave is that they have a hard time to compete with the local player like Tujia and Xiaozhu. They have been there for many years. So I think the competition definitely one angle. Another angle is I think they foresee they're gonna be very challenging for them to have traveler use apps to stay in China. You know that normally the Airbnb tend for the people traveler stay relatively longer period of time, which means if it's short stay, they can stay in the hotel. The longer period of time, they want to live in the local's house, right? Enjoy local's life, spend more time. But based on current measure, it's different people get into China. Okay, 14 days quarantine plus 7, that's 21 days. So no one come. That's one thing. And second of all, you stay in someone's house. We have it's called the Jiedao district manager committee. So basically, where you go, you have to record yourself, where you are, where you come from, and they're likely you stay in some house. Suddenly, the entire building is shut down. It locked down for 2 weeks for some reason. So they're too unpredictable. The people doesn't like something which they cannot foresee. It's too unpredictable. That's very make people feel travel is become very challengeable. I think that's reason which make Airbnb left China. That's underlying meaning, of course. But however, the interesting angle is they didn't shut down they only shut down the business in China, but they didn't shut down the traveler use app to booking the house or outbound overseas. So they still think that the spending potential is huge. And just for China operation, they just cannot sustain themselves. After 2-3 years, I think they're also listing company. So they cannot to expand to their investors. They have shut down the branch, save the cost, make the price stock price looks good. I think that's pretty much the reason about it. I hope I answered 2 questions in time. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Time really goes fast as we're really running out of time here. I want to ask each of our panelists if I give you 30 seconds to say like what's the key message you want to give to our audience who is interested in this industry. And so as we go, we start with Melanie.
Yeah, well, just to share that I'm trying to be very optimistic because I believe that our sector is very resilient. So we will be able to adjust ourselves to the new normality and that we will come stronger than ever. We just are waiting for people to have this revenge feeling to try to make up for the lost time under lockdown to start to travel again as pre-pandemic levels.
Yes, revenge travel. Serena.
I think we talk a lot about international travel as well as the China-related travel demands. I think like even though we already see a very good trend in non-China area travel, but we still have a lot of work to do. It's not only for government, but also for the companies that like Trip.com. We need to do more to build up the trust of the travelers. So without the trust, they won't decide to come to China. And we also have a lot of facilities need to improve. So I think this is some opportunities. With the opportunities, we have more. We can have more bright future for the inbound and also domestic travel markets.
Thank you. And next is Guanlu.
I think the strategy for this industry in the future should be focused on sustainable tourism development. I think the consumers, they tend to travel in the more city destination, more rural, more authentic destination, which is less crowded. I think that somehow can impact the consumers' travel behaviors caused by this pandemic. But however, for the industry, I think there are two key breakthrough elements in the focus on. One is keep developing, focus on the involvement of the advanced technology, see if any disruptive technology can impact the industry. And make sure they are the first one to jump on board. The second was is high quality human resource development, because only have the right people, the industry can be able to build a professional quality and competitive industry. So I think that's the two breakthrough elements I just like the audience to really pay attention to: advanced knowledge and high quality human resource development. And thank you.
Forrest?
Yeah, so the message I want to deliver all of you is I think life is travel. Life is a journey. So enjoy your life, enjoy travel. So you cannot do it now offline, you can do it virtually. And the innovative technology is around the corner. So we all expect the disruptive new travel pattern will come soon. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Forrest. Jonathan, what's your closing message?
Just two things I just want to say is, firstly, is the last 2 years are really, really tough for many, the industry. However, that with the reshape of the industry, for those survivors, probably they are possessing better opportunities compared to before. Okay, so this is really, really something is really encouraging and promising. And secondly, I really want to cite what Premier Li Keqiang, what he said recently. The China's open up will be irreversible. So I have a strong faith China will open up one day, just a matter of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Well, travel and tourism is an amazing industry. Hospitality in particular, the hotels we run. It's never a dull day in our industry. It's never the same day 2 days in a row. And it's always something exciting. We are one of the oldest industries in the world, as mentioned by one of our panelists. And you know what? Once things do open up, which I am very confident they will, I look forward to welcoming everybody here attending this to the Rosewood Hong Kong.
Thank you. And for my research, I do a lot of content analysis. And so I look at all the words that we've been talking about tonight. We talk about unpredictable, ups and downs, roller coaster, and new technology, a lot of new things. And the word crisis in Chinese actually means danger and opportunities. And so I'm sure today's conversation will give our audience a lot of insights and ideas about what's coming next. And from a strategy perspective, I think no matter for our personal life or professional life for our business, the ability to change quickly and swiftly in response to these unpredictable situations will definitely be a crucial skills for us to survive and actually enjoy life, I guess, in the future. So thank you everyone for your time, and thanks this great panel for sharing your insights and perspective with us. I guess that's the end of the session. Sorry that we overrun a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Once again, thank you very much. Take good care, stay free, and I hope to see you all very soon.